Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset.
Welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. And we have a very special guest, someone I've been trying to get on the podcast for about a year, and I got her intoxicated and made her sign a legal document that she would come on.
Is that legal?
We have superstar coach, Liz Tanzola.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me.
She is strapped down to the chair, and you can't see that right now, so that you can't escape. But Liz is going to be on with a couple episodes. The next one will be airing next week, and that will be our next Herd Fit Q&A. We have 3 or 4 questions that we'll go over. But today, the episode of today's podcast is from pink outfits and cigarettes to superstar coach. So we're going to dive into 2 different things here. We're going to dive into Liz as a person, as a coach, and just some of her journey. And there are a lot of takeaways from her journey that a lot of you can learn from. And many people that listen to the podcast were not a part of Bison in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 even, right? And if you weren't, you didn't really see where Liz started. You kind of just see this like majestic, unbelievable athlete, personable, fun coach that is passionate about what she does, and she does it at a very high level. And she's been a staple at Bison really almost from the beginning. And I believe that if you get to know some of her backstory, you might view her in a different light, in a good way. And for some of you out there that were maybe Liz 10 years ago, kind of unsure where you're going to go and maybe looking for something to grab onto, you might get a lot of inspiration from her story. And I hope you do, because it still inspires me to this day, kind of like where she came from and where she is now. And it can make you appreciate things on a much deeper level. So Liz, I know you're a little nervous about coming on. But we're big, and I know you got this, and we're also big on always, hey, let's do some things that make us a little uncomfortable. But before we get into your backstory, just some opening thoughts on what you really want to share today, what direction you want this to go in, and what you hope others can get out of it.
So I had absolutely never been in a gym before, right? And that was very just like nerve-wracking for me. But I think you can learn anything that you want to learn. You can do anything that you want to do. But you have to take the first step. Mm-hmm. And that was the hardest part. So I just want that to be an encouragement for anyone, no matter what background you have. You can do, this is for anyone, literally anyone.
Awesome. Now, Sam, opening thoughts on Liz from your perspective, because you know Liz on a pretty deep level because you've been here a long time. You've been on the staff with her for a few years. You guys were both on the second place team from the CrossFit Open, from the Bison Intramural Open.
Whoa. We'll save that for a new podcast.
We won't bring that up. But really, I mean, you've seen Liz throughout her entire process, and it's been a maturation process in a lot of different ways. And I still think she's on the way up. When I said I wanted to have her on and really kind of give her backstory, what were some of your thoughts and from your perspective? And then we'll get some thoughts from her.
I got 2 things first that I got to say. First is I'm still getting over the fact you called her majestic. You've never called anyone majestic in my entire podcasting career with you. I was like, holy crap.
She has a presence about her.
I agree. And I was like, that's a great description. The second thing is dude, are you sure you're not in the Army? Because you're such a sniper. You just like bring topics up and you're like, oh, we're not going to talk about that. Like Team Black, excuse me? Okay, we're not talking about that. So 2, kudos to you for that little quick snipe. The third, and Liz and I know who the winning team really is, so that's okay. And then the third thing is Liz and I started about the same time.
You did?
Maybe a month or maybe 2 or 3 months, I can't remember, a little bit before me. And so I have very, very early memories of Liz. And honestly, for as much as you've changed, there's so much about you that has not changed. Like, that's the thing that is so interesting about seeing someone over the net, like in the gym that you've known for 10 years is how much they've changed, but how much of their core has not changed. And that to me is where I think most of us can take lessons from, because we should change. We should change a lot. And
we should evolve.
We have changed a lot, but there are certain parts of us that are core to us that I think are integral to our success and our growth. And those are the things that I think make up like Liz Tanzola.
Awesome. Cool. So Liz, background a little just athletically, sports, what did you do growing up? Because for those that don't know, when we started off, we talked about this on this podcast once before. When the first time we saw Liz sprint, she was not in good shape when we first saw it. But when we first saw her sprint, we were like, whoa, there's just something like naturally gifted there. And I want others to kind of hear what is the sport background, training background of Liz? Go all the way back to high school.
So I did,
Yeah, there you go.
I did run track.
Okay.
That was always a discussion with me and my coach. I thought I should be throwing weights. And he's like, nope, you are a sprinter. So we compromised. We did a little bit of both. And I will say I love to sprint. And then I also played soccer.
Okay.
And that was always a discussion as well. I wanted to be a defender. I thought it was less work. And he's like, no, you're a midfielder, and that's a lot of running. So I did, believe it or not, I did run a decent amount, but those were my two sports in high school growing up.
That female background of soccer to CrossFit,
You love that.
it's so common.
That's your pet theory. You
It
believe
is.
that, don't
It just
you?
works. So for anyone that has a daughter out there, get them on the soccer field because they'll be a good CrossFitter someday.
Gymnastics wouldn't hurt either.
So just let's consider this, right? Soccer, I always think lower body development, aerobic system, capabilities are there, and torque, the ability to use your hips and create power. That's a lot of what CrossFit is. Throw in the track, quick twitch, fast twitch muscle fibers, explosion. When you watch Liz lift, when you watch her run, when you watch her jump, when you watch her muscle up, all this stuff, right? That's what those fast twitch fibers do for her. She's explosive. So that kind of helps. It always helps to look at someone's background, and that can tie them to an athlete. Now, training. Let's say high school's over, and you said you had never been inside a gym before, and this is years after you graduated high school. What was your outlook was there an outlook, a perspective on working out, eating clean, being healthy? Where did your mind shift post high school in relation to your body and your health?
I guess I didn't really have, as sad as that is, an outlook on healthy eating, healthy lifestyle. I just thought after high school it was over. Like, it was sports, it was fun, it was team effort, and then, you go into life and you work and you do full-time things. And I just didn't have a perspective on that. I've always been curious about the gym. I know we had a weight room in high school, and I'd always walk in it. I'd look around and I'd walk right out. And that was pretty much the same thing with the gym. I didn't know what to do there. I didn't know what machines to be on or how long to be, like what to do. So I just didn't go.
Right. I think that's a really important thing to know about her, is that no matter if you are someone that wants to get into coaching someday, or even something deeper than that, that background, it's important, but it's definitely not vital. It's not a make or break. And in some cases, the people that have Liz's approach are actually easier to teach than someone that read, fitness magazines and really came into the situation thinking that they knew everything, right? When you come in humbled by the fact that, hey, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't know how long to do. Those are easier people to make an impression on. And that's kind of where Liz has started off at CrossFit. What made you, though, start CrossFit? We're talking 2014. So you're talking about 8, 9, 10 years after you graduated high school. That's when you kind of decided to take the first step towards something like this. What caused that decision?
So I don't know how far back we want to go here, but I did know Dave previously, right? He worked at Fridays, and I worked at New York & Company in Ramsey. So I would always go there, after work with my girls, and just, the end of a day, just kind of wind down a little bit. And then Fridays closed, I stopped, working at New York & Company, et cetera. And his Facebook, we were still linked on Facebook as friends, and it came up that he opened a CrossFit in Midland Park. So I still lived in Midland Park. So I remember sending him a message, and I was like, what is CrossFit?
How did you know Dave then? Like, what was he like? What were your interactions with him at Fridays? Like, what did you do at Fridays?
He was a bartender.
I was a bartender. Like she was a bar guest. I don't want to pump myself up, say she was one of my bar regulars. She was She was there a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, whether I was working there,
Yeah.
whether I was leaving my shift, going to my shift, whether I was hanging out there, she was there a lot.
Were you
And,
the Tom Cruise cocktail bartender guy?
without the good looks?
He did bar competitions.
We
I
did-
just want to say that.
We
He
did,
was intense.
so we're not going to go that far back. But no, that is where Liz and I met.
Yeah.
Was in that bar scene.
Mhm.
I was working. She was do you call it a patron? Patron.
Yeah, patron.
Patron. Okay. And that's kind of like where our kind of friendship began. And then I moved to Hoboken.
Mhm.
Kind of left the scene. That restaurant actually closed in time. And then, a few years later, after I was done working in finance, we've talked about that story a million times, right?
Mhm.
You come up, open the gym, and you're blasting it all over Facebook, just to hopefully get a couple people to come in. And she obviously saw it,
Mhm.
messaged me. Was there a reason why, even though you were not really into the fitness scene back then, was it just the personal relationship that you're like, hey, let me come check this out? Or was it, hey, I think I need to start getting some shit together?
I honestly I'd never heard the word CrossFit before.
Yeah.
So that was the first time that came up. Just knowing that I trusted you as a friend,
Yeah.
I figured if I was going to try something new, somebody would have my back just in case.
Right.
So I think that helped me feel comfortable coming in, just knowing that I knew you.
Were you exercising at that time?
No.
That's
No?
a hard no.
Sam, I'm gonna, but I don't know if we should do this. We had the picture from Liz's first day at the gym.
Oh,
It's somewhere.
my gosh.
It's somewhere. I'll find it. And so she came in back then. When we first started, we used to do these things called free trial Saturdays. It's kind of what we do on Wednesdays now.
Yeah.
Let anyone come in.
Yeah.
But it was a very designated. We had 2 or 3 classes in the morning for members, which at the time we had like 6 people. So, there weren't really classes. And then the last class of the morning was free trial day, where we would try to I got some people from like my church growing up, some of my friends, and Liz and Brian both. Brian is Liz's husband. They came to one of the classes, and there's a picture. It's like the most infamous outfit ever in the history of Bison. Was it Gucci? Or guess? No guess.
Let's get this on record. This was from Kohl's.
Bright pink. The brightness that would hurt your eyes kind of pink.
Pink
Shoes, shirt, black pants, completely done up like she's going to prom. And the workout had burpees, sit-ups, box jumps, which I think she did step-ups. And I do think we had running. I think one of your first workouts had a run, or it was a warm-up run, and it was 200 meters, and she couldn't make it.
It was bad.
She made it halfway down and had to walk back, grabbing the top of her abdomen, which, I'm 10 years into the business now. Like, that's one of the first things I look for if someone's like, all right, I'm not sure about this person yet. If they can physically hang on to a workout, and I look for 2 things. One is the chest grab, the heart grab. I always get nervous about that, kidding aside. The other one is I hope this person doesn't throw up when I see them grab the top of the stomach. We've all been there before, right? You get nauseous, whether you're hungover or you just feel like you're about to throw up.
Yeah.
My 2-year-old just still does this. He grabs the top of his stomach. You're like, oh, crap, something's coming. And I've cleaned up puke in the gym multiple times. It's one of my least favorite things to do.
Mm.
And I remember saying, this is a warm-up run. And she comes in grabbing the top of her stomach. I'm like, oh, crap. So, fast forward a little bit. She joins the gym and shocked that she would join the gym. And I think, were you smoking cigarettes back then?
Yep.
I think the first time Tafara met her, she was just smoking a cigarette in the park.
I would light up on the way in and light up on the way out.
So that sounds awful, that experience. Why did
But
you...
didn't understand like the relation. I didn't understand that was going to slow me down or affect me because I did not understand like a healthy eating. Like I would just house a piece of Domino's pie and then go to the gym. Like I never put it together that would hurt me. I thought if anything, I was doing something good for myself, like working out and like getting into the gym. I just did not put the 2 together.
Why did you decide to go to the gym? It sounded like an awful first experience and not anything you would want to do.
I don't know why I kept going back.
I know why. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
This is my opinion.
Okay.
Liz can tell me if I'm wrong. But
Okay.
as physically hard as it was, and I think for early on it was pretty miserable, it was never like demeaning. It was never like,
No.
you're not good enough. Like we would just easily scale things and change things up and pursue stimulus. As much as we're a sophisticated gym and program now, it's still the foundation of the CrossFit work. Like no matter what condition you're in, we'll meet you where you're at.
Right.
and we'll change things up.
So you didn't put her down because she could not run 200. You
Absolutely
didn't
not.
make fun of her outfit.
They made me feel like a rock star. I feel like I was so good.
I will say that there were some things she could do initially that most people couldn't do. Just like moving a barbell fast.
Mhm.
Just again, the fast twitch muscle fibers that are
Mhm.
developed when she was in high school and track and soccer, all this stuff. It was already there.
Mhm.
And then you would occasionally see her jump and like, okay, that looks pretty good. Like looks like an athlete that can do things. And she dropped a lot of weight in a hurry, and so did Brian. And I just think 2, 3, 4 weeks in, you start to see things click. She was like a fast learner with a lot of these things. And then you see the physical progress with her body and Brian's body.
Mhm.
And I know that the two of them were dating at the time. And I think they pretty much always came together at that time, right?
Yeah,
don't
I
think
started first and then he came.
Okay. And so I believe that just having like that kind of buddy to come with, and then she had a few friends that tried out. Remember Alex, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Kim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Kim,
Yeah.
before she moved to Baltimore.
Yeah.
I think there was like a bond with a few people at that gym that made it more of a welcoming environment
Mhm.
than just a place to go work out and lose weight.
Well, I think that's the other thing for owners to know is you should always be welcoming regardless of the person's capability or what you think of them or how awful or not good you think they are. Like, that's what Bison did do back in the beginning.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
never demeaned anyone. We still don't. Like
Right.
we have people who just come in and they've never even thought about exercise before. And we never make them feel anything other than just do your thing and we'll help you.
And like even just comparing old to new, what Liz does at a really high level as a coach, there's a lot of things she does at high level, but one of them is, I think, better than myself, absolutely, and most, if not all of our coaches.
Yeah.
When someone new comes in,
Yeah.
they feel like a star.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of her greatest traits.
Yeah.
That's why when someone new is coming to the gym and I know she's coaching, not that I have any fear with anyone else, but I'll put myself out there first. I don't do as good as job at that as Liz does.
Neither do I. They gravitate towards
And
Liz.
and that might have been partially her experience when she started.
Mm.
Is a few people took her under her wing, right? And just made sure that you were comfortable. But I also think Liz knows where she came from,
Mm-hmm.
that she was in those shoes before.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in this gym now, there's just freak athletes everywhere.
Mhm.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a very intimidating. Back then, it was not as intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
We had 3 people that could do kipping pull-ups. You walk into a Saturday class now, there's 19 people doing ring muscle-ups. You're like,
Yeah.
what is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liz, let's talk about some of the early kind of struggles to successes that you had as an athlete, right? We can go down the injury train. We can go down how long it takes to really truly progress and get consistent, how long it takes to change your lifestyle. What were some of the roadblocks, speed bumps that you experienced as an athlete, early days of Bison to even now?
Honestly, I feel like everything when I started was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But you just have to kind of break it down. Like back then I was so overwhelmed with trying to learn everything.
Mhm.
But like we said, there's always a scale. There's always something you can change up. There's just always a way to get through the workout. And I think that's what I love about it. It's just kind of finding where people are at. And that's what they did for me.
Mm.
And then trying to figure out how you're going to get through this workout and what to change. And that helped so much. And I think it made me, made my goals, which I wanted to be able to do every single thing in the gym. That was always my goal once I kind of got hooked on this.
Yeah. I remember some of your early days, like I want to be able to RX everything.
Yeah, I did.
And I love the goal. I really do. And even in this gym now where RX is harder than it used to be,
Yes.
you know, I mean, you know that,
Yeah.
both you guys know that more than anyone because you've been here pretty much from the beginning. And we always want to make sure people know that RX isn't necessarily better than scaled, but it is a goal. But one of the hard things to hear from is you can't always put a timeline on it.
Right.
And I think that's one thing Liz also did well because she did make a lot of progress, but then she had to go backwards a few steps. Let's talk about some of the physical issues that you had early on, just so that people, again, they know where you're coming from. You've had knee, you've had low back, you've had a couple of things even recently, that really caused you to have to take a step back. And I want to use the strict pull-up story, but I'm going to want you to kind of talk about your piece first with just some of those early day injuries that made you take a step back. How did you approach it? How did you bounce back?
So I do remember I broke my toe.
My God,
I was in a boot.
I forgot.
Oh, I remember that.
Tell the people how you broke your toe. I forgot about this. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So this happened actually twice. So the first time I was doing a kipping pull up, not proud of this. And there was a 45-pound plate on the ground and I was using it as a step stool. And
I kicked it.
I kicked it. I hipped right into it, and I kicked so hard, and I thought it was fine. And then I went out that night, and it was like throbbing, like to the point I could barely walk. And then I went and got checked out, and yeah, sure enough, in a boot. So, and then I had another stress fracture in my foot from sprinting, and I was in like barefoot shoes that just have no support. But yeah.
Yes, and then do you remember your low back injury?
Yep.
I think that was the first time. That was the first time that like you were really like crying.
That was a serious one, for the first serious one I remember.
I think it was out for almost a year.
Yeah.
It was probably like maybe 9 months to a year. Yeah.
And that was, your introduction to Hartman. That was your introduction to like real PT work.
Chiropractor, yeah.
Yep. And there was one thing that you did. So like a lot of us associate low back with you can't lift heavy, you can't deadlift. You weren't even allowed to kip.
Nothing.
Like that hyperextension on the spine without a high level of core strength because of, I think part of the reason why, this is like an opinion, I'm not a doctor, is because you have so much power and torque and the core was a little underdeveloped, that every time she kicked back was just so much force. I mean, how many people would kick a 45-pound plate? Your legs are moving a few inches, but because she's so powerful, it just created so much impact and broke a bone. Same thing on the back with the herniated disc, that because she would bend back so hard and everything overhead, she would put up, I remember there's videos of her putting up, 180 pounds above her head, a month or a year after learning how to do a split jerk. But all that force that would go above it would just kind of put a lot of pressure on that spine. So what did you do for a year straight on the rig? Every single time we did pull-ups, muscle-ups.
Strict pull-ups.
Strict pull-ups, nonstop. I think the girl probably averaged, I would say, 75 strict pull-ups a week for a year.
Yeah.
And Liz's greatest movement right now, a movement that like it's in a workout, I know she's going to be able to do them, is the muscle-ups. And we talk about this. We have a lot of people in the gym that want muscle-ups. They want that first one. They want to be able to do them in the workouts. They want to be able to do them in the open next year. Strict pull-ups. I want to do more strict pull-ups. Strict pull-ups. I mean, you look at Liz's back, her lats, like they're unbelievably strong, and she can wide grip it. She can short grip it. I think that's a lesson that I want everyone to learn, that you can never do too many of those. If you start to hurt your back a little bit, your shoulder a little bit, or you just want to get better at gymnastics, you can never do too many strict pull-ups. Let's reflect on that a little bit, because how old did that get? Did you get sick of it?
Oh, it is so boring.
Yeah.
And everyone's going fast around you, and you have to slow down, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. But it gets you. I just remember having bar muscle-ups, and then when we finished the strict pull-up thing after 8-9 months of that, I was actually able to catch them locked out, and I didn't even know what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But that was all because that's all I did was strict pull-ups, V-ups before V-ups was even a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's it. Just those two things all the time.
Sam, do you remember when she was banged up back then?
Yeah. And I was just thinking about it because both of you back then had high-level competitive aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
And both of you were training unbelievably hard.
Mm-hmm.
Both of you guys were just like on that heavy volume training. Like you guys were constant, you, Dallas, Liz, all of you guys. And then I remember, what did you think about that period of time when you were, both you guys actually were like, we're going to make it to regionals. We're going to do whatever it takes. And, you guys were in all the local comps. I remember a couple partner comps. You guys did the 201, everything. When you look back at those times, what do you think about?
201 is probably the best memory because that was the comp right after. That was like our first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we came back and we won that.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, you did. That felt amazing after just sitting on the sidelines for so long.
Yeah.
Like I remember sitting out in open as well, and then coming back and like having that was fun.
Yeah.
Do you feel like what did you get out of all of those years of competitive training and like really gunning for it? Like, what do you think about that?
A lot. That was a huge part of my CrossFit journey. Like that was amazing training for that. I could work out for hours on a Sunday. Hours. Like I just love the process of that.
Mm-hmm.
And just having someone to push you to another level.
Yep.
I remember I was always trying to beat Dave.
Yep.
Always. It happened once, remember?
Once, yep.
Remember that box jump workout?
Yes, I do. Wall balls, box jumps.
One time.
Yep. Yeah, we did a conditioning piece. It was like, it's still one of my go-tos to this day. If I have 20 minutes and I don't want to warm up, I just want to get some heavy breathing in. It's every 2 minutes for 10 sets. You row 250 meters for guys, 200 for girls. And you do it at like 95% effort every time. So that takes me about 45 seconds. And we did it probably once or twice a week. I want to say for a year. It was just but what we do is we'd start taking the intervals down. So instead of every 2 minutes, we go every minute 55, minute 50. And we made a rule that hey, whatever your first time is, she was doing 200, I was doing 250. I'd be around 45 seconds. If you ever got worth 2 seconds slower, you basically you're done.
Yeah.
And we would always get there, and you did it because the other was doing it. I think our the best we ever got was we got down to every minute 30. So it was basically, and it was brutal. And it's still, I don't know if I could do that right now. That's when I got good.
Fun.
That's when I got good at rowing though. And it's not a fun workout to do by yourself, but it's great. And we would always race on the last one.
Oh yeah.
So the 10th set, and she would always beat me. I could never beat her on the last set. She would get the 200 meters done in 38 seconds.
You guys are both masters now. How does that feel when you look back at what you guys were doing and now what you guys could do now? How has that changed you?
Well, I mean, Liz just made quarterfinals.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good because Liz loves team competing. I think it's part of her personality. I think it's part of her skill set too. And also I think she has more fun. I've always said team competing is always more fun.
Yeah.
It's a different animal.
Yeah.
I actually think it's more pressure too. You don't want to let other people down, which in some ways can help, some ways can hurt. But the fact that she just made the individual quarterfinals and she just competed individually, and that's kind of her next step, right? And then we go from there and see what else she can do. That was a really cool thing to see. Just knowing that where she came from. The first part of this podcast it's to finish, and it's top 10% in the world. It's nothing to slouch at.
And in 35 to 39, which is a brutal division. I cannot believe how hard it is to make that.
And she made it by a very easy margin. She had to work hard, but it wasn't she barely got there, and she did really well. And she's the kind of athlete, some of athletes that we talk about in quarterfinals probably will do better than the open because the shit's heavier and the skills are a little bit higher. She can handstand walk, she can ring muscle up, all that stuff that doesn't always show up in the open. Did this year. But so it's a fun thing to kind of reflect on. Liz, what do you think about, because I want to get into some of the coaching stuff now, but closing thoughts on you as an athlete and all the training that you went through. What is something, and don't worry about humility here. What's one thing you're really proud about that from day one, that pink outfit with a cigarette and Domino's pizza to top 10% in the world in the hardest Masters division? What's something you're really proud about there? Again, don't be afraid of putting yourself out, because I want other people to hear it and pursue it. Look at it from that lens.
I feel like it was something that was new to me that I couldn't do. Didn't even know what a push press was, none of that. And then trying to learn it. And then now looking back on it years later, 8, 9 years, I don't even know. Mm-hmm. And I can do all of it. Mm-hmm. And I just always want to do it better and better and better. But I love that I have mastered the skill of CrossFit.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
You can always get better. You can always do more reps. You can all dive into all that. But I just feel like it was something that I never thought I could do.
Yeah.
Especially how heavy I was back then to now.
And just out of shape too. It wasn't just a weight thing. You were out of shape, and you really, you took the hard path or the long path. You took the long game there, and here you are. And I think this is where we can blend in the coaching and kind of go all in on some of that talk. But your experience as an athlete, do you think it helps you as a coach?
Yes, 100%.
You can relate to people?
Yeah, because conditioning was the biggest thing that I never ever thought I'd be able to do. I know that's with extra help from you over here, but I do feel like I can relate to somebody that throws up after a workout and says this isn't for them, because I was like, it is, because it happens many times. So
still does.
And your path hasn't been a straight line. It's been very zigzaggy, not only with injuries, but just I feel like you guys are very brother and sister. You guys tangle a lot. It's not perfect. It's not like you always eat perfectly.
Right.
I remember back in the day, you come in and be like, I just ate a ginormous bag of chips or something last night, or ice
Doritos.
Cream. Right, Doritos. And so it's not like you're some perfect person who just shot to the top based on genetic potential and
a lot of roadblocks.
Yeah, listen, we just kind of and it's not like everyone is harmonious and perfectly in sync with each other as we go along. There's so many times I remember conflict or people disagreeing or setbacks or disappointments, and all of those things, when you look back at it, though, was just kind of part of that process of maturing and becoming like a better person and athlete overall.
Yeah.
No,
definitely. Those are good words too, because we're not machines, and sometimes it's hard to relate to these people that are like, whether fitness influencers or coaches, where they're just like eat kale every day, they never go off their macros, they never have a drink, they sleep 9 hours a night, they never go out socially, and like I admire it, I respect it, really, because it's hard to do. But sometimes it's like, all right, well, I don't want to do that. Like, that's not how I want to look back on my life.
Dude, you just ate leftover Easter candy.
I did, jelly bean. See, that was last week, Sam. Why are you thinking about that? Gosh, we are deleting that off the podcast, by the way. Edit. Let's press the edit button there. So the coaching, did you have any sort of, like, what was your direction kind of like early 20s in terms of what you might want to do with your life? Did you not know? I mean, a lot of us, myself included, change your mind 7 times during that time. And I know some people here right now are doing the same exact thing at that age group. Did you have kind of like a goal mid-20s, early 20s in terms of what you wanted to do?
Not really. I was a manager in retail. And even though I wasn't big on retail, as you can tell, like I just wear my sweats all the time, I loved helping people. Like I loved the lady that came in a absolute mess. And she was like, I had to go out tonight and I don't know what to wear. Like I loved just pulling millions of outfits for her and helping her.
That's cool.
And that was always something that I just loved doing about my job. So I thought I was going to be in that forever. And then, as time went on, things started to change a little bit. And then you guys dropped the question. I think we were at Laura Thierry's house. I want to say it was her birthday party.
In Hoboken.
Yeah. And I was not expecting that. They were like, do you want to coach here? And I was like, what? Like, you don't want that. And I remember you said something to me like, we're looking for people, with the character that we want, and we will teach you how to coach. You don't need to know how to coach. And that like kind of hit home with me. And I went home and thought about it a little bit. Just think about it, and then get back to us. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And that was the statement that I was like, I can learn how to do this. I can learn how to coach.
Yeah. And I think that this was the first time we've ever looked at someone and said, like, because I think we were probably a year and a half in at this time, maybe 2 years. I don't want to get that. It's right around that time. So give or take. And we were at the point where like, all right, membership is growing. We don't have enough money yet to start. Like we were still making almost no money, Chris and I, right? But we knew that we were on the way up, and we had to say, we can't just, I couldn't be coaching 40, 45 classes a week anymore, right? Early morning, late night, Saturdays. It was, you get to a point, that's not sustainable. You have to do that at the start. And so we were looking for someone that would be a full-time coach eventually. And we said that's our scariest thing ever for a gym, because it can ruin it in a week, like that. It could snap your finger. And we got to know Liz pretty well. And I do think knowing Liz much further, like years before the gym even opened, did help a little.
How long had you known her before you asked her to become a coach?
I mean, I really first met Liz, I think it had to have been 2008.
Okay.
2009, right around then. So, you're talking 7-8 years of knowing someone, and then really getting to know them in that late year or two when she was a member at the gym. And we remember I talked to Chris, I was like, this is the person that we want to coach. For a lot of reasons. The personality is number one. You just, judge, you can judge character at some point, especially I think you really get to know someone in CrossFit space. It's hard to be a fake there forever. You can fake it for a while, but you see the good and bad of everyone.
Absolutely.
And, you're drawn to her on both sides there. And then the second side is like, where is she in her life right now? Right? Does she have 6 kids? And like, does she have a desire for a change like this? Like there's some people that I know right now that could probably make a good full-time CrossFit coach, but they're in a different area of life. They don't want to make that they're not that kind of risky personality. Where I think Liz is someone, even now, is someone that would be like, hey, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I think she proved with how she approached her training with CrossFit. And it had nothing to do with her ability. She still wasn't a very good athlete when we first asked her to coach. She was good enough. I'm like, what a dick thing to say that.
It was, and I disagree, but go ahead.
But like, compared to what she is now,
okay.
She just had a long ways to go. But we saw what the progress she was making, and we saw how it was happening. And it was just showing up every day with a smile on your face and, be the energy in the room, like blah, 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 right? So that was why we asked her to coach, and we still weren't sure if she was going to do it. And I give her a lot of credit And maybe some of it was her being naive, that we didn't really have like a long-term future plan locked in. We were hoping it would work out, but we were still so early that it could have been something that, hey, this might not work, in a year or two. You might have to go back and try to find another job. Did you have any inkling of that being the case back then?
No.
Yeah. And what was the biggest hesitation of possibly not doing it, or were you just all in right away?
I think just being in front of people, like having to lead a class and be in charge of it, get it done on time, the logistics, the clock, like talking in front of people. There was a lot.
I mean, I will say, Liz, you are probably the best pick that Dave has ever made for a coach that didn't even know that they want to become coaches. Like, you kind of are always looking around. I know, because I talked to you, Dave, about people who might be good coaches, even if they don't know they want to be a coach. And, because a lot of the coaches we have here were coaches. Adam Storms was a coach before he came here.
Like natural teachers.
DeCarlo.
Yeah.
Like they all were CrossFit coaches, or many of them were.
Or teachers like Liz.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Liz kind of crosses all the 3 A's we talked about in coaching: the availability, affability, ability. But when you said, I don't pick people because of how they look or how they move, absolutely, I think Liz was picked because of how she looked and how she moved. She looked amazing moving. Was it a little raw? Yeah, but I do remember, like, literally the first month, I think I was in a WOD, or not a WOD, a WOD. We were back squatting. And I remember she was like, in the old days, it was just one rig on 2 sides, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I'm squatting on one side, and I see you and Liz is back squatting on the other side. And you're like looking at her like you're looking at, like,
majestic.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like watching Michael Jordan dunk or something. You're just like, oh my God. Like,
She had it. Yeah.
like, just the way she was moving.
She had more, but like that kind of like, wow, impression is ability, not necessarily the skill. Or like, it wasn't always looking good, but you just saw things occasionally. We're like,
Right.
That's not normal.
I knew you were always looking for potential.
Right.
And back then, especially, because there were way more men who were interested in competing in CrossFit.
Right.
And there weren't as many women who had that potential of competing.
Yeah.
And you saw that right away. It was interesting that you also saw the coaching ability in you, Liz, because honestly, like, you as a coach, even though you were so not familiar with any of it, like, you are probably the smoothest coach in terms of a class that I see at Bison. Like, you run through it like you stepped out of the womb born to coach. Like, it
Not in the beginning.
but that's what it takes to become a great coach, is to be able to do that. And that's what I aspire to too every day. Like, I'm just like, I got to get my reps in because that's where I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about some of those early days, Liz. I mean, your fears were logistics, the clock, the warm-ups, right? I mean, she still puts a lot into thought and stress into the warm-ups, right? Which is hard to do when you have a class of 4 versus a class of 26, right? It's just hard to do. Let's talk about some of those early days at the old gym that, I think from my perspective, one of your issues early on was you're just very quiet. You didn't want to be loud. You didn't want to have to yell over people. You didn't want to have to come across as like, hey, this is my class. Like, occasionally you have to do it. You don't want to be power hungry, but sometimes you do have to act in that manner. What were some things early on, looking back as a coach now, that you struggled with and you overcame?
I think just the organization of a class.
Timing
was huge. Just like what to do. Sometimes there's like 10 different ways you can warm something up, but not everybody can do it. There's people that are more flexible than other people. They get more out of things than other people. I remember back in the day, we used to write every little thing down that they did.
On the whiteboard.
2 ab mats, 1 green band. They rode instead of ran. Like, it was their weights on the barbell. It was a lot.
It's like a story.
Yeah. And there's like a line of people waiting for me to write their stuff down. And the next class is coming in. I'm like stressed out. I'm like, I still got 10 more people to go. But yeah, I think I've gotten better with that. And I think a lot of that is just planning. And I know you do that as well. Like, just a lot of planning and a backup plan. Plan A, plan B.
Good. Now, do you think it's best to learn that way? Like, you were thrown into the fire a little bit, experience, or do you think there's a better way to learn?
I think there is a like part of it is you just have to get out there.
Yeah.
You can't just have everything planned out. And that's hard for me. So I do like to plan every little thing out. And sometimes, I mean, that's life. It doesn't work out the way you want to. And like sometimes you're going to make a mistake. And I think that was the hardest part for me, is being able to just own, like, I ran the clock down instead of up, and it makes absolutely no sense for this workout, but we're going to finish the workout. Like those kind of things. Like you just have to own that you did that. And now I understand it a little bit better. I understand when the clock has to be up, when it has to be down, when it has to be on select.
Yep.
All that stuff. So it's a lot to take on, but I think just kind of being thrown in. And then I know you came to a lot of my early classes, just making sure you were in those classes in case something went wrong. And I know he did that for you and all the coaches, actually. And I think that's huge, just to know you have like a safety blanket in class while you're starting. It goes a long way.
Yeah, just in case something happens.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, the worst case scenario, like I still have that fear every time I go to bed when I'm coaching early the next morning. I always look to see if like a coach is there, whether it's Liz or Mike or even Nicole Carlo, who has Brian's keys. Like if I oversleep, can I call them real quick and tell them to open up the gym? And like, again, that's a similar concept, that security blanket.
Yeah.
That it kind of just eases your mind. And when you have your mind to ease like that, I actually think it brings out a higher level of performance. So I think that's really important for an early coach to have some of that security blanket. So for anyone out there that does have new coaches coaching at your gym, either yourself or put it on someone to be there just in case something goes wrong, but more so just for the coach to have that peace of mind so they can really apply the best versions of themselves. Now, kind of fast forwarding, not necessarily, it could be to now or even just the past few years, right? The blend of your job goes so much deeper than planning your warm-ups, warming a class up, setting the clock up, 3, 2, 1, go, write scores down. If that was the only part of your job, it'd be a pretty easy job. And that probably gets perception from the outside. That's all you do. But the people that really pay attention or even half pay attention know that there's a huge social component to your job. There are a lot of technical off hours, out of coaching hours that are a huge part of your job. The sounding board, organizing things in this gym for the next class. I mean, Liz is probably puts the most effort of every coach on our staff to setting up the gym for the next day. So like when she leaves here Friday night, she sets up the entire gym Saturday morning. So if you ever come to the Saturday 7 a.m. and say, wow, the gym set up, wasn't us, wasn't me. It was Liz, the Friday night coach.
Thank you. I just coached on Saturday. It was perfect.
I had help.
So there's a lot of things to her and her job that makes her really very deserving of getting a title of a big time coach. And it goes so much deeper than what you guys see in classes. Liz just spent, hours in Parsippany yesterday watching Alex compete, taking videos, put them on social media for us to see. So for those that can't go, you can still feel like you're being there and support them, right? Those are some things about her job. And then the social, I mean, she is our social director, our party planner for the gym. Let's talk about some of the things here that you do for the community, for Bison, and just how do you balance all of that? Where do you cut things off? Because if you don't cut things off, you'll be, getting text messages at 11 o'clock every single night. So how do you blend all things together to, hey, serve the community, but also keep yourself sane?
I think at the beginning, like I love the social part of it. And that just leads to, I think everyone is here for a different reason. And you can kind of find out everybody's reason for being here and you can help them so much better. Like there's the competitive athlete that wants to go out there and compete solo. There's the team athlete. I just want daily life healthy. I want to learn a pull up. I want to pull up for, my first time. There's so many different reasons for why people are in this building, like why they come here. And if you know their reasons, I feel like it is a lot easier to help them in that direction. And everyone needs something different. So I feel like in the beginning, I did kind of reach out a lot. And recently, I do think it kind of bit me in the butt a little bit, like just how many people I was trying to help at one time. And I think, just realizing it is a team effort and it's not always just, me, and we all do it. And I think I just had to slow down a little bit and, put some boundaries on things. Like I can't be sent, like Matt C said to me, he was like, you sent me a video at like 2 a.m. And I was like, yeah, I did. I sent it to social media so that, it wasn't going off on his phone or anything, but I wanted him to have that video of him lifting per what we were talking about in class. So I do think there are boundaries. Like I can't be, going home from working and then on my phone messaging people about their CrossFit journey, from 7 o'clock to 11 or midnight. So I gotten better with that. But it is hard. It's hard because you want to get back to everyone and you genuinely want to get back to everyone and talk to them and not just give them like, the one word, answers here, and that you really want to connect with them and they care and you care. And I think that's part of like being a good coach is genuinely caring about each member and what they're asking or why they're asking or the help that they want. And you want to get that to them. I think that's big. That's big, but it can be overwhelming, which I know you know all about.
Yep.
It absolutely can be overwhelming.
It's one of the struggles of a growing gym.
Yeah.
When you start a gym from scratch, you dream of the days of what we have right now. You're like, oh my God, I hope someday and honestly, back then it's so I can pay my bills and make a career out of this and make money, right? But also a big part of it is you have more impact. You're helping more lives. But one thing you don't think about back then is how overwhelming it was, right? I mean, when you have 100 members and you're helping 20% of them a little bit extra because they, a little bit more needy with attention or they just have things that need to talk about, multiply that by, up to 300 members, you now have 60 people and you're still one person. So yes, it's a team effort that all the coaches really put their best effort in and when they can, but you still need to draw those lines. And I think that's a huge maturation that Liz has come across in the past, I would say 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
I think it was really hard for you, Dave, at first because you were the point person for everything.
Yeah.
Liz, I honestly became like the heart and soul of this gym in the sense like you got so intertwined with everyone in the community. I mean, your wedding, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
That was
a bison party.
It was amazing. Like, yeah, other than your family, I was like, I knew I'd never been to, and everyone said this, I'd never been to a wedding where I knew 95% of the people because it was everyone at the gym.
Yeah.
And it was
fittest wedding party ever.
And it was amazing, but it as things have continued to grow, it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Dave has handled it in the sense that you had a kid, you had like hard limits that you couldn't bump up against.
Right.
And Liz, just without that, you just keep doing it until you're suddenly like stretched to the point where you're like, oh my God, my brain is going to explode. And then you start figuring out like, how do I keep myself sane with it?
Yeah.
Right.
But that's part of growing as a community. Like we are a community. It's a gym that's a community. And when you have people that are so integral, that are so beloved, that are so much a part of relating to people, and that becomes a challenge. Burnout is probably a real issue for some coaches in CrossFit, I would say, just from a personal perspective.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt I could see a lot of coaches sort of encountering that.
This is one thing that I don't even know if this is right or wrong, but I'll just say it. It's like when I listen to Kalipa and some of these other, big business CrossFitters, corporate-y CrossFitters.
Yeah.
They're saying like minimum of 18 to 21 classes per week, and then another 20 hours of sitting at the desk per week. That's what a full-time coach's job is. They get this much money for that. And, we've always played around with our schedule a little bit, but one thing I've always tried to do with myself, Mike and Liz, but especially Mike and Liz, because, they're not owners and owners should always be doing more, in my opinion, right? Is not to give them just more classes. Trust me, we would save us money if we did it, but I think the second you start just giving them too much and not letting them have some separation or the ability to separate, or give them time to go do some of these things, videos, reaching out, go to a comp, right? It makes the product better, and because it keeps them in a better place. You could easily just tell them, hey, you guys are doing 20 classes a week starting next week.
It's brutal.
And early mornings, Saturdays, and we still expect you to reach out. You'll get burned out because of how involved they are. Now, if they were just like, hey, dude, I'm clock in, clock out. I ain't going to a single comp and watching anyone do this because I got this going on. I got that going on. I'm never reaching out to people outside the gym. Then honestly, that person probably could coach a little bit more. But I think it's really important as an owner from, that tries to take care of Liz as much as I can. I try to take care of Mike as much as I can, all of our part-time coaches, that it's important to know that if you do overwork a CrossFit coach in a community like this, that is pretty, I would say, needy. they are.
Well,
but
I think we're all looking for connection and for help and guidance.
But part of the neediness is not, I hope no one took offense to that. It's more like we are very involved with each other.
Yes.
And I get a lot of help from the community. Like I'll say that in a heartbeat. Like I've had some issues in the past few months that I've had some help with people. So like we all have those episodes. So if you add that onto top of coaching, classes with 25 people, high variety of athletes, it can easily lead to a burnout. And I think that's something that a coach that is full-time, you need to do your best to avoid and try to find the balance of like, hey, sometimes you do have to suck it up, part of your job, but other times we got to make sure we're taking care of you.
How do you deal with complicated social situations, for example, at the gym? Like, these are all interpersonal relationships, and not everyone gets along with each other. People have issues sometimes, other things. What has been your experience in terms of now navigating that? Because these are your friends in addition to athletes and in addition to, people that you work with, basically.
I mean, like, what do you mean by complicated?
I don't know, conflict, either people having conflicts or having issues with each other, or you having issues with them.
Okay. I think just trying to keep it out of the gym. Like, the gym should be a safe space for everybody to come to. And sometimes there are things that go on outside of it. But I think when it comes down to being in the gym, it's got to stay separate. So sometimes you have to give advice to help somebody through that. And I think Bison has been that space for so many people. It's made a huge difference. I mean, we've talked about this many times. It's changed so many lives here, like so many, like stories that are not even out there that people don't even know. And that's all because they kept it separate. Like, they wanted to be at Bison. It was a relief, for whatever is going on in their lives. And sometimes they come to you, but you have to keep it, on the side, quiet. It can't all be out there, and not everyone can know everything about everyone. Sometimes it's really personal. And I think they trust us to keep that to ourselves, but help them through things that they're going through. And sometimes they do need a little bit more attention, just mentally. Yeah. I think that's part of knowing what's going on with them.
I love that. Just keep it out of the gym, and it is very possible, like it could be something like petty, like don't put me in the zone next to that person, like keep that stuff out. But even just being respectful to the people, even if you have a conflict with someone, in these walls, it's a responsibility of everyone to be respectful to everyone in that room, even if there is a conflict going on. Yeah. And it is hard. Trust me. We're not saying it's easy. No one's perfect with it. But I think those are great. If you want to keep that simple, what Liz just said, keep it out of the gym because of what this gym is doing for people and what it's done for us personally. That's a great answer. Now, getting to some of your workouts now, Liz, because we're almost going to wrap this up. But I want a coach or future coach to understand this. Is it possible, and what do you have some thoughts on, pursuing your own fitness goals while you're also trying to be a professional here? Do you find it's hard to be a professional at a gym and everything that comes here? Because you're probably like me, right? Every time you come here, you want to fix something, or someone's got to talk to you, or you got to go organize something, or something's out of place and it's bothering you, but you're also here to train and work out. Is there a struggle, or have you mastered this, that, hey, I can separate the two and it's not an issue for me anymore?
I do feel like I wouldn't say mastered, but I do feel like I can separate the two. Like, when I'm here to work out, I'm here to work out. But I also, that goes back to planning. Like, when I do warm-ups and stuff, I'm also sitting there doing my percentages that you put for the workouts. Like, I'm writing everything out. I know exactly what I'm doing when I get here. So it does kind of relieve my mind a little to say hello to somebody, or like, if they come up to me, like, have a conversation, because I know exactly what I need to do in the workout. So when it's 3, 2, 1, go, I can just kind of go.
Yeah.
So that does help me, but I didn't do that in the beginning. So I would be here trying to figure out my weights, my percentages. Then someone would talk to me, and then it's like, oh my gosh, like, we're starting in 5
3, 2, 1,
minutes.
go.
But if I have a plan, I come in and I just know exactly what I'm doing, it helps a lot. Like, it really does. So I do feel like I've separated that. But my training has changed a lot, I feel like. Just getting smarter about how I train, and that it's not always, max stuff like you guys have talked about. I do feel like I'm working in my percentages, and I'm happy to change things up when I need to, like happy to throw in strict pull-ups instead of kipping. Like, I feel like all that kind of ties in.
Yeah.
Who's doing your training programming for you right now?
This guy.
Okay. I don't know. Like,
I thought it was like a plug.
No. Well, yeah, that too, but I really don't know. Like,
I think with one thing that's different about Liz that we've changed a little bit is that she does basically 1 or 2 less days of CrossFit per week. Like, she's really doing probably 3 Bison WODs per week. She's still training pretty high volume, like 5, 6 times a week, and some of them are really long. And she does, she pretty much does it all. She's one of the few that almost does them all. Whatever's programmed for her, she'll do it unless there's an issue going on. But she has gotten away from just having to feeling the need or the addiction really
Yeah.
to come in and crush a wad 6 days a week and then, wonder why A, not making progress, B, always banged up.
What kind of focus are you having in your programming right now? I know you have some local comps you're doing and coming up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think my eyes are very set on the open every year now.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had, just training with those girls. I don't train with a lot of them often. A lot of them are 930ers, and I'm just not around them a lot.
Right.
So that was pretty amazing to me. So I'd love to go about that again next year.
By those girls, are you talking about the quarterfinals?
Yeah.
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. The quarterfinal girls.
Yeah, and that starts with the open.
Yeah.
Because you only get there through the open. Yeah.
So the open is like my big picture, I guess you could say. And then we just talked about maybe legends being like an in-between.
Mm-hmm.
So comps, I guess I view them a little bit more on the fun side than just picking a comp to go try and like crush my best, my best time.
Train for it and all that stuff. It's more like, hey, let's just go have some fun. Maybe test a few things.
Yes, like somebody I've done a comp with maybe. But I guess going back to the training in the gym, just not getting hurt. Like being healthy all the time. Like, sometimes when I'm going from the ground a lot or like snatches from the ground a lot beat me up. Like testing the waters, knowing what I can push, what I can't, but not getting hurt because I need to work out for the year to be ready. So
how about outside the gym? That's always a struggle for you, but for everyone, for me too. Like your eating, your sleep, your stress levels, all that managing.
Sam, we could do a whole podcast on my eating. Like Dave actually brought me to the grocery store one time. It was like this, yes. Like it was that bad. Like I don't even know what my issue. I have like an addiction to food. You put it in front of me, I can eat a whole box of Cheez-Its, like hands down, 13 seconds I can eat that. Like you would be baffled by what I can put into my body. And it's insane. But I'm trying to like get better at like portion control. Like instead of eating the whole box, maybe, and that does help. And then I go through my ups and downs just like everybody else. Like I've been at my heaviest and then like 2 months later, I could thin out a little bit. Like, do I ever think I'm going to see an ab? Probably not. But I'm okay with that. Like, like
overrated. Overrated.
We'll go back into genetics and stuff like that. But yes, I do feel like I need a lot of work there still.
Yeah. And Liz, everyone's different with that.
Yeah.
And, the ups and downs with some of Liz's nutrition that others can learn from is that she does listen. She's coachable. Like if you really tell her to do it, she will try, and she will struggle, but she'll at least be honest with it. Like I've worked with some people a little bit with food on the side, and it's just not my jam. It's not something I really want to do. I will do like some surface level things, but you can tell some people are not honest about it. They're embarrassed, and she's not. She's like, dude, Cheez-Its, 13 seconds, ate them all. And like those are the people you need to work with. That's the only way to do it.
To be honest.
Like if you're gonna crush some Easter candy that's still written out, you have to be able to say that. And so I think that's one thing that she does. And does it separate her from her next level? I mean, we could all say that.
Yes.
It probably could. But it's at the same time, you don't want to go down the path of telling her not to eat because she works out a lot. She does a lot of volume, and it won't be sustainable. And she will not do a good job in the workouts if she's not putting a lot of food into her body. So I don't think that the issue there is as big as she might make it out to be, or some others might make it to be. But like everyone, it could definitely be better.
Sure.
Liz, last question here. Okay. To you, Liz Tanzola, it's a two-parter. What is an ideal coach? And then what is an ideal staff? So if someone out there wants to be a coach, what is an ideal coach? And then I also think it helps that person to know what is an ideal staff, because do you fit into that kind of position within a staff that you're seeking to get onto?
I think a coach, somebody that is genuinely invested. And I know like time, it's different with a full-time coach, a part-time coach, like what they can give, but it just has to like genuinely be there. Like you genuinely have to care about somebody's success in the gym. I don't think you can fake it. Like you said, you might be able to for a little bit, but I think over time, they know the difference. Like you care about getting them better or you don't. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's a perfect coach. Now, what is an ideal staff? So can you remove yourself a little bit from just like the individual and from a group? What is an ideal staff?
I just think a staff that works for each other. I think there's little things you can do to help each other, like we were just talking about with Saturdays and stuff. And I think it makes the big picture just flow just so much better.
I like that. Just kind of like making sure that you're not just working for the gym, but you're actually working for each other.
There's things you can do for yourself to make your job easier, your couple hours there easier each day. But there are little things that you can do to make everybody's life easier.
Right. And if everyone's doing that.
Yeah, and it flows. And then people see that and they thrive off that. Like when you're working as a team, I mean, you're literally unstoppable. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I've never, every time I've coached 5am, ever had to write a whiteboard workout out or have like move a ton of crap around in, I don't know, probably years at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost automatic. Like I think when I first started, like that was sort of a thing. Sometimes I would have to do it, but I've never for years had to do that anymore. And it's almost like, and I just assume that someone's going to do that for
I'm
me.
never on that end. Like I know, I just in my head, I'm like, if I had to coach 5 a.m., I'm half asleep. There's 30 people in here. And I got to set this up and make this look organized.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
And I'm so grateful because it's those little things. Because when you're done at the end of the day, the last thing you want to do is not like, you just want to get out of here. And yet these coaches at the end of the day are spending that time to get that stuff set up for the next coach in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's good that even that you're saying that, Sam, because you don't ever want to lose track of it.
Never.
Sometimes you do. Not you particular.
No, I do. Sometimes that's why I want to say it, because I want to remind myself how grateful I am for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Liz. You did awesome. We'll probably even have you on next week. This will be a little bit more fun with the HurtFit Q&A, but that was, you did a great job. And I hope everyone that listening got a lot out of that. All right. See you guys next week.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the HurtFit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.